I think this year everyone was really excited about pins, which is such a small thing, but the SecureOT booth had some pretty fun ones. Obviously, they had a bunch of swag for the new rebrand of SecureOT, but they had a couple. I think the most popular one was these little ghosts. So I kept seeing people walking around with a little ghost pin, and it'd say, "I see cyber risks." Or there was a funnier one where it had like a little, kind of like a exclamation point warning, and it said like the pin said, "I find your lack of security disturbing."
Welcome back to Season 2 of OT After Hours, a podcast about industrial cybersecurity, why it matters, and all of the challenges that it presents. And now with completely new branding. But I don't know if we'll talk about the reason why in this episode. But before we do dive into what we wanted to talk about in this episode, let's do a quick little round table. I'll just go around my screen. We welcome back Mr. Tyler Bergman.
Hey there. How's it going?
Well, I could use a little bit more snow here, but the temperature is trending in the right direction, so that's good. And Natalie Kalinowski is back as well.
Hi, everyone. Excited for Season 2.
And the mastermind behind the last episode, Lamont, is with us again.
Boy, you made me want to do a maniacal laugh there.
It's a well-deserved one,
Thank you.
All righty. So, now I think all three of you were at, so just to set the stage here, Rockwell Automation every year holds what they call Automation Fair. Automation company, Automation Fair, makes sense. And it's a big opportunity for a lot of Rockwell's employees and customers to come together, meet and greet. There's workshops, there's tech demos, there's big displays, there's all kinds of stuff that goes on there. It's like a mini-CES for Rockwell. I did not go, but I gather that all three of you were there.
Yes, sir. We were. It was a great time.
Yeah.
All righty. And now, Natalie, this was not your first one, right?
No, it was not. So I've been to a few, but this was in Chicago. And generally, Chicago is usually the biggest one we have just because it's centrally located. So a lot of customers are able to join. It's really close to the Rockwell headquarters, which is in Milwaukee, and another Rockwell location in Cleveland, Mayfield Heights. So it's a fairly great location for people to travel to. So usually turnout is awesome every time.
Cool. But Tyler and Lance, this was first time for both of you, right?
It was.
Yeah. I even took the buses that they provide from the Milwaukee location down. So it was an adventure.
Oh, yeah. It's like Disney.
It was. Great opportunity to socialize with the people on the bus. It was amazing how much talking was going on during the hour and a half on the way there and just over 2 hours on the way back. It was just constant conversation, and you knew it was people meeting and interacting. It was really cool.
Nice. So the whole goal of this episode is basically just to kind of get those like first impressions, sort of do a bit of a deep dive into like what Automation Fair is and what your experiences there were like. And I thank you, Lance, for dropping a bunch of photos into our little podcast planning chat. And I got to start with the shirt. Or is that a shirt?
It is a t-shirt.
Let's talk about Plex, baby. Okay. Walk me through that because I'm just curious.
Sure. So as I was wandering around, I've been just looking at different booths and so on. And I saw this shirt. And in the history, as Rockwell was acquiring Verve, I started trying to reach out, finding people that had gone through the experience of being acquired, trying to understand the culture. And it turns out a wonderful person from Plex, which is also part of Rockwell, reached out to me and has been mentoring me since the announcements of the acquisition, basically. So I saw the shirt and I just had to take a picture and share it with her. So basically the background is I've had a wonderful mentor for 2 years, and I wanted to say, hey, look, this is sort of fun. Turns out this is a group that's a competitor / friend to the group that she's a part of. So it was great. I was able to facilitate a conversation there. So it was really nice.
Nice. Cool. So like you were saying, connections, conversations, right?
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, and right above that, okay, so this looks like a big robotic arm demo with donuts. Oh, Well, donuts are always fun. Those are donuts, right?
Yeah. So there's a Delta robot on one side and a more standard style robot on the other, with conveyor belts running in between them. And there were several different demos of robots just moving around. And as a geek, I have loved things in motion for years and years and years. So these got very distracting. I didn't share the videos, but there were lots of very cool assembly line manufacturing technologies, software integrations surrounding all of those. And I stared and watched those quite a bit. At the Rockwell booth, I didn't get a picture of it, but they were demoing a new capability of basically sharing robot positioning information between multiple brands of robots. And they had two different brands of robot arms that were coexisting in the same space, moving things around and avoiding each other. It was a very, very cool demo, but I didn't get a picture or video of that one. I got too distracted just staring.
Did you get a donut?
I think those were plastic donuts.
Oh.
But I did get breath mints. They had they had another material handling demo where they were moving containers of breath mints around, and then they were loading them onto an auto unit, and I think it was an Auto 100, and the Auto 100 was driving out into the audience a little bit so people could just grab things out of the bin, and demonstrating how well it was avoiding humans. And as far as I know, it did a great job.
I like what you were saying there about the robot arms and from different vendors, and just being able to like talk and essentially, what's the fancy word, interoperability, interoperate with each other, right? Because it strikes me that that's something that, well, I mean, that scenario probably already exists in the wild anyways, and it's probably only going to become more and more common as, companies do what they do, and they merge and they acquire and they expand, and, new units and new production floors get developed, and now all of a sudden the robots here have to talk to the robots there, and everything has to sync up and work together. And it's that strikes me as an important thing.
The thing that was particularly impressive about this demo, and I'm not sure if it's something that existed before, this is sort of outside my area of expertise, but was the two arms were within a distance that they could collide with each other. It wasn't just, arm from manufacturer number one and is working on a conveyor belt, and 5 feet away is arm from manufacturer number two. No, these two arms were right next to each other, and they were handing things back and forth and moving things on the surface around, where they had to be able to path plan around the positioning of the other arm. So it was a very, very impressive demo of how do we have all of this sense of space that can be shared between them.
Yeah, that is actually several degrees more impressive. Wow, the spatial awareness and the ability to not collide with each other, but then actually, hand off to each other.
Yeah, it was quite impressive.
Cool.
I was actually impressed with the amount of cobots that they had there too. That was pretty interesting items that they had there as well. Have you seen those before? Those are pretty interesting.
You just said a word there that I didn't even know existed before now. What is cobot?
So a cobot is basically, a robot assisting a human in some type of capacity. So like for like material loading, some of the videos I've seen in the past where they were helping like manufacturing, where they're doing like an assisted material load into like a CNC machine or something of that nature, something that's like, big and bulky, like a big aluminum block that they're doing for like a forged engine or something of that nature. It helps them out with like material handling and things of that nature.
So part of it is they have advanced sensing, torque sensing, that sort of thing on the joints, so that if they interact with a human unintentionally, right, the cobot is swinging around and there happens to be a human in the way, it can detect it and stop, alter its operation, or so on, so as to not hurt a person. The idea is you look at many of these industrial robots, and it's just, if you're in the way, it will keep moving. But the cobots, if you are in the way, they will either detect it beforehand or they will stop on contact to the point where it's safe to have it operating around a human being without giant barriers. You don't need those laser barriers. You don't need fencing, those sorts of things. It'll just, it'll do its thing, and you can have a human right there with it.
That's impressive too, because yeah, I mean, especially with the scale of some of the robots that are now being deployed in industry, right? Like, it's like, expecting a dump truck to stop on a dime for a human crossing its path.
Most of
Not
the
quite that
cobots
big
I've
yet,
seen,
but
most of the cobots I've seen have a lower weight capacity. They aren't going to be moving at tens of meters per second. They're designed to be around people and have loads that can be managed around people.
Yeah. But still, I mean, I'm thinking about and this is going back like years, but I remember, this is totally to the side, but I remember my dad telling me a story about hanging out with his buddies, irresponsible teens and 20-somethings at the local mechanic shop in the small town he grew up in. And I don't remember if it was like a Chevy, but it was like one of the first cars that had like a four-banger aluminum engine block. And he walked into the garage, and one of his buddies literally just hoisted the engine block, which had been stripped down. It was like, "Hey, Rob, catch." So, I mean, it's on the one hand, you do have, I mean, obviously, okay, cobots are going to be moving slower. They're going to be carrying smaller loads, but in my head, I can still picture, one of these things moving something about the size of an engine block, and that would still hurt if it contacted you.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was one other demo that I found very, very impressive for interacting with people, and that was the Auto robots. And obviously, Auto is one of Rockwell's brands now.
Yeah, you've mentioned that a couple times.
Yeah.
Or you and Tyler both did.
They had a floor surface. This is the last picture I shared, but they had a floor surface that they were moving around all three of the designs, the 100, the 600, and I don't remember the number of the largest one. I think it's 1200, but I could be wrong. That's essentially their weight capacity in kilograms. So 100 kilograms, 600 kilograms, I believe that's roughly accurate. And the coolest part of the demo was how casually the representatives of Auto were walking around the space. They built up their confidence around the equipment, but they didn't have to pay attention to the Auto units. They didn't have to be aware of the movement of these units. They were just, you got a question, they'll walk right over there. And they'd even just walk right in front of one of the units, and it would stop. It would replot a new path, and it would keep going. And I thought it was sort of funny. They have little turn signals, so you know when they're turning to the left or turning to the right. But it was a very, very impressive demo, simply from the standpoint of how casually they could interact with humans and everything else without the humans needing to really pay a lot of attention. So very, very impressive demo just from that standpoint alone. They also had a whole bunch of boxes that they'd hand to people behind the little barriers, and they'd say, "Hey, just throw those out onto the space here." And you'd watch as the robots would reroute around them, and the Auto units would reroute, and it was just really, really an impressive thing. That in combination with the units not needing any markers, not needing any tape or magnets or anything to track in the ground, that they just sort of, once you define the space, they can do all their pathfinding stuff without even needing any specific paths. You set up, this is your goal, go, and it can plot its own route through. I was very, very impressed with them.
Yeah, it was almost like a Roomba that was built to move pallets around,
Yeah, but
it's pretty wild.
Yeah, not the first Roombas where they just sort of bump around the room, the smart ones.
That is quite the flex to just be able to just casually walk into the path of, where this industrial loader is working. And it's just oh, yeah, I got you, bro. Don't worry.
Yeah. So I did walk around with one question that I kept asking, and it was very interesting to see the responses. And the one question that I would ask lots of people was, have you ridden on it? Because obviously these auto units, 100 kilos, 600 kilos, that could be a couple of people, right? And there were a couple of other things. There was one that almost looked like almost a train, and it was moving around pretty fast and had turnouts and things like that. And I kept asking that question. And of course, the obvious answer is no. These are not designed for human safe, riding on them. So no, we have not ridden on them. And that's all I can say on this podcast. But it was a fun question to ask and had lots of interesting conversations that resulted from it.
Nice. How about you, Natalie?
That's the official response, right?
It was the official response.
Officially, no.
I'm imagining like Aladdin's magic carpet.
That'd probably be a pretty close analog.
I could see him with pool noodles and jousting and all that other craziness going on. It's just the kind of thought that's going in my head at the moment.
Yeah. Except the collision avoidance. You got to wonder how that would work, right? The two robots just detect that they're coming at each other and then they just go their separate ways. Just ruin the whole jousting experience.
I understand that you can change the what its stopping distance is, how far away something has to be. So you might be able to set it up to be, 6 inches or something. So you could get close.
It's more like a boarding action, though, at that point, right? A couple, 3 people with pool noodles on one and a couple on the other. And
well, the largest auto, you could put a ship on top of it.
Yeah. Oh, wow. How big do these things get? Wow.
Well, I mean, it's let me do a quick search here. I hate to tell you the wrong numbers, but if you look at the last picture, you can see that the 600 is smaller than a pallet, but not by too much. It can reasonably carry a pallet around. The larger unit, it is larger than a pallet. You can just fit a pallet on it, and it's on either side. So it can really fit a lot, and with the capacity. And like I said, I'm trying to do a quick search here on a live or a recording here. This is great. Auto 15, there's a 1200 and a 1500. I think it was the 1500 that was there. So it can carry, 1500, or payload capacity is 1900 kilograms. So toss a car on top of that, no problem.
Yeah. Or, 5 guys with pool noodles.
Wow.
Oh, boy.
That is interesting. Because, I could see shipyards with those big container trucks, the Connexes and everything like that, moving those around too. That'd be interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Huh. Wow. So what else did we find out there at Automation Fair besides riding around on the autos?
Yeah, I mean, I can say a little bit about what my experience was. So I've been to a few automation fairs, and every year I come back so impressed with the amount of content they're able to fit in a couple of days, not just for customers, but also for employees. Because we've been talking a ton about the show floor, but there's a ton of things happening around the show floor. So some of the events are the keynotes, the workshops, all the backroom sessions. So there's constantly people walking around, moving from building to building. If just thinking about the workshops, I was only able to duck into a few of them and see what was going on, but there's really interesting ones on, basic fundamentals, even teaching, our customers how to do ladder logic for controller programming. But there's also some interesting ones on, designing, how to set up, the CPWE, with Cisco workshops. And I saw other workshops on drives and Powerflex fundamentals. So it's really a cool opportunity for people to get that hands-on experience with the people who built the tools and the softwares. So those workshops are really interesting to peek into and see what was going on. And then the other cool thing is the keynotes. I think the keynotes are a really cool way to kind of get a pulse for what's happening at Rockwell Automation and kind of what the future is going to bring. And so the theme of this year's Automation Fair was create what's next. And so I know the phrase I kept hearing. When I was on the show floor, I walked by the innovation booth, and their kind of theme was, moving from automation to autonomy. And so that's kind of, for us who work with the Verve platform, or now it's been rebranded to SecureOT. A lot of the conversation was around, emphasizing like software-defined automation and how to go from, like how to simplify the workload for people. And not only that, but one of the keynotes also announced a really exciting new development for Rockwell, which I don't know if you guys heard about, but they're going to be investing in, I think they're investing $2 billion in a new greenfield facility in southeastern Wisconsin. So it'll be really close to headquarters, but they're essentially planning to kind of build out this showcase of like automation and AI and robotics and cybersecurity all together in this one location. And so I know they were talking about how they've already started the like construction process, and that they're planning on having it open in 2028, which really isn't that long from now. So there's a lot of really conversation around that. And then, of course, for us, I mean, I spent most of the conference at the SecureOT booth. So I was spending most of my conversations talking with people about, how they're managing their, cybersecurity strategy and their programs, and how they're doing asset inventory and risk analysis. And so I would say that from those conversations, I think some of the key things that I noticed is like how are they going to prioritize their cyber investments? Because when you're on a show floor, like we have the SecureOT booth in the center, and then surrounding us, we have a ton of partners. So we have, network traffic based tools around us. We have other kind of asset inventory tools around us. And so having those conversations with customers where they can walk over to our booth and then to another one, and then kind of, figure out what do all these tools do, and how do they play nice with each other. And so it's kind of a neat way, because I would, talk to a customer for a little bit and talk to them about, SecureOT and asset inventory and risk and vulnerability management. And then they would tell me about this other need they have. So I can just send them over to the booth right next to us, and then go have another conversation with, another team. And so it was a really cool way for, customers to really figure out what they need, and then get pointed directly like to the person that they should talk to figure out, what's going to give them the biggest like ROI. And yeah, so I think that was kind of exciting, is because everything was moving so fast. Like conversations were really, like they're really in depth sometimes, and then sometimes they're, I don't know. It was really interesting just to hear all the different types of customers, people who are, just starting out, or people who already knew what they wanted and they just wanted to be directed to the right person. And so, yeah, so I'd say that was probably my kind of impression after, a couple of years, is just seeing it kind of come together like a musical, where you see all the workshops, the keynotes, and then you see the show floor where there's so much interaction happening all the time. And so that would be my impression of this year's Automation Fair, is that it was really exciting and so well put together.
There was a ton of those workshops out there. I was actually kind of amazed by those. And it's pretty interesting, because they did have kind of a vast variety of things out there, from like factory talk, remote access, to like doing the Stratix switches and things of that nature. I thought was super interesting. One of my major things, and you had mentioned it too, is kind of knowing the lay of the land as far as, what are the other different components that are being offered out there within the realm of Automation Fair, our different partners that showed up, as well as, a distinct knowledge around what are some of the other offerings that are out there. And, I ended up striking up a conversation with the Asset Center folks, which was really phenomenal out there. And I don't really see them as kind of a competing product. They're more of an augmentation of an existing ecosystem out there, where they are more of a configuration management of anything related to the Rockwell Automation controllers and things of that nature that's out there. So that's a more deeper, in-depth understanding of all the componentry out there, and when you're wanting to do backups and things of that nature, those things. So I had a lot of ties with people that would talk to me about, distinct asset management of all their assets and everything like that. And they said, well, I'm really interested in seeing the configuration management of all of my controllers and things of that nature. And I was like, hey, I just learned about that. That's over here at this booth. Strike up a conversation with these guys. They'll tell you all about Asset Center, and about how you can pull in all the different aspects of your ecosystem and do that close niche configuration management over your controllers and everything that's out there that's within your environment of Rockwell Automation devices, which I thought was really, really cool and interesting. So for me, it was all about trying to find out the other ecosystems that we had out there that was within kind of the partner family as well as in the family of Rockwell Automation, and then kind of getting a good feel for everything out there, the process, control, the motion stuff, and things of that nature. It was just super fascinating to me from being like a controls engineer from back in the day. It was just super interesting.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think another fun thing, this is a completely side note, but I think this year everyone was really excited about pins, which is such a small thing, but the SecureOT booth had some pretty fun ones. Obviously, they had a bunch of swag for the new rebrand of SecureOT, but they had a couple. I think the most popular one was these little ghosts. So I kept seeing people walking around with a little ghost pin, and it'd say, "I see cyber risks." Or there was a funnier one where it had like a little, kind of like a exclamation point warning, and it said like the pin said, "I find your lack of security disturbing." And I think there was another one I think I saw where it was like, "Keep your hands off my HMI." And so there was a lot of really nice pins that I saw a lot of people walking around, and it was really a good way to start conversations with people, because I believe every day when you're on the show floor, right next to the show floor is the kind of cafeteria. It's like the area where everyone kind of funnels in to grab lunch. And so I even found myself when I was in line, someone like saw that I had a pin on me that said SecureOT with a couple of the other ones. And this guy just gives me his business card. He's like, "Can you send me this information? I need it, but I don't have time to go to the booth." And so I thought they were like a really fun way to like start conversations, but it was also a really good way to figure out, who is interested in SecureOT or just, cybersecurity in general. So I thought it was a really fun, fun conversation starter as well.
Those were such a fun little thing.
Yeah, this year's were fun. I think last year I have a few fun ones. I have a fishing one where it's just like a little rod. And they said, I forget what it said, but something about, stop fishing. And then I think I had another one with, it was called Sock Appeal, and it was just a pair of socks for, a secure operations center. And so I think they're really, doing well every year with the little pins, because they do work. They do get people talking to each other. And so it's kind of a fun memento to bring back home from the conference.
Nice. Ken, they were out of them by the time I was walking around on Thursday, so not sure how many extras there are, but Natalie, if you happen to have a few extras, I'd take some too.
I will see. We might have some from our team, so I'll see if I can locate any extras for you guys.
The ghosts went fast, though. Those were pretty wild.
Yeah.
Well, they would. That's just everybody likes a clever pin.
Natalie, you mentioned the sitting down and eating lunch. If everybody looks in the pictures, I shared a picture of the lunch space, and that was, to me, one of the most biggest surprises, was just the sheer size of the eating space. It's one of the entire halls of the large convention center, all set up with just tables. And yeah, you go through the vendor or the exhibitor area and things like that, and you get a sense that it's a big event. But then when I saw how many tables there were for people to eat at, I went, "Oh my goodness, this is huge." And Natalie, you mentioned sitting down and talking with people. I ended up sitting down at a table full of Purdue students, so university students. Ken, at the beginning, you were mentioning the people that come to this. There's a whole nother set that was there past the professionals, past people that are selling or marketing these products. There were a large number of students there. I was talking to the students at this table, and one of them was in computer engineering, another one was mechanical engineering, and another one was in the I'm sorry, I forgot which major he was in, but they were all different majors, but they were all taking an industrial controls class at Purdue, and so they were coming for that. So it was a very, very interesting cross-section of people, and I don't think we've even started talking about FIRST Robotics and all of the people there. And I'll try not to say too much about that. Natalie, I think you were also super excited about FIRST Robotics.
Yeah, I mean, First Robotics is such a big part of Rockwell. There's so many people that volunteer with the organization just to, help, mentor students, but also go and coach students for their projects and also be there for those competitions. And so every year it's one of my favorite booths to stop by just to see, what new robot they've come up with and just having the, younger students explain their code to me. And so I find it so impressive when you have a fifth grader who can very eloquently express like what they did to, not only build and design a robot, but also how to make it communicate. And then they can, very intelligently discuss with their, counterparts, other, fifth graders about, the pros and cons of, making this decision versus another. And so it's really cool to see that, next generation moving forward. And, the Purdue students too, I walked by their booth because they're right by the first generation students as well, or not first generation, it was the first robotics students. And it was just so inspiring to see. And honestly, it's one of the most popular booths. I always see so many people walking over and talking to them and asking them about their projects. So it's a really fun one.
Yeah, I've been involved with FIRST for decades now, and it is absolutely amazing to, like you mentioned, talk to the students. Ignore the adults at first. They're wonderful people. They're mentors. That's great stuff. But when you go over to a FIRST event, walk up to one of the teams and start asking them about the robot and ask them what challenges they had, how they solved them. And it always floors me how amazing the program is as far as how it really teaches communication, how it teaches that engineering. The mentors obviously really help them learn it, but when you get there, talk to the kids, it's amazing. And I would strongly encourage anybody that's listening to this to find a FIRST robotics competition and go attend it. It's really cool just to see how it works. I particularly appreciate that the competitions, I think do they still call them cooperatitions? I know that was the name it was a few decades ago. But you're teamed up with another team and you don't know which team it'll be, and it's random until you get to the competition. And so you can't have a giant rivalry against another team because maybe two more matches from then, they're going to be on your side and you're going to have to figure out how to work with them on the playfield and be their ally. And it's amazing how that keeps the competitiveness on the playfield. And then when you get back to the pits, if you're having a problem, the three nearest teams are going to be helping you try to figure it out. It's just an absolutely amazing program. And advertisement, sorry.
I was going to say, is this where I just drop in like, I don't think man, I can't even imagine what kind of fireworks that would set off if we started dropping ads in the middle of these. Oh
Yeah.
boy.
I think so beyond just the FIRST robotics, going back to kind of cybersecurity, I'm thinking about, our booth and like some of the cool conversations that were happening. And so one of the new things this year is that we had kind of in the center of the booth, there was kind of like this micro session area. So think of like a really tiny auditorium trying to block out the sound because the space is loud and there's a lot of echo. But they had this little booth for like micro sessions where they'd have like a speaker come up and talk. And then surrounding you had all the kiosks with stuff to kind of talk with engineers like Tyler and myself. But those micro sessions this year, it was cool because they had some new topics that I hadn't seen Rockwell put on. I think one of the most interesting ones that actually had a really good kind of turnout was like there was one about like building a united IT/OT kind of like risk strategy. And so it was interesting because there was definitely IT people at this, automation fair, and they were coming up, and I would see them sit down and kind of like, scratch their heads and think about like the conversation during that micro session about it. And then there was, other ones about like risk and vulnerabilities and our managed services. And it was kind of cool for me since, all of us have our, very distinct roles in this kind of huge cog of a machine, and to hear it all kind of come together to see, what customers see when they like come up there. It was cool to see that they can, start from like one little tool and then kind of build out an entire program. And then if you're someone who's maybe on the IT side or on the OT side, there's like someone who can kind of talk your language and explain it to you. And so I think this year it was really cool to have those, like just listening into those micro sessions, because I felt like I was learning something from just like our peers. And I think those were like kind of like a win for me, because I feel like I was, so engaged with all these people coming up to talk to us, but then I also felt like I had the opportunity to learn some new things as well. I don't know if you got to sit in on any of those micro sessions or listen in, but yeah, they're really cool.
Those were absolutely awesome conversations too, because you're talking to the IT folks with their OT folks there too, and you're just kind of providing that bridge there too. Trying to talk through some of the challenges, and then also trying to kind of bridge it to where, put it in the perspective of the guys that are working out there on the different controllers and things of that nature. I had several conversations where I was talking to some the folks that are working on different systems. Like there was this one guy that I was talking to, they worked on a lot of like gantry cranes and integrated systems that they were building out there. So they were like in a portion of where they're doing like a super lockdown with all their IT systems. And I told them, that is a big conversation that you got to have with your IT folks, and trying to get it to a point of where you're at a good security posture, but you're not, so heavily restricted that your guys out in the field aren't able to do, specifics around their job. So I talked to him about different scenarios that he could take back to his IT folks as far as what they could do for trying to build some type of a prescriptive program around their capabilities to be able to do that remote work out in the field without being so heavily restrictive on their componentry, like TCA enablement and, USB lockdown and things of that nature, to make sure that they're, doing clean practices around how they're interacting with all these products and everything without being so heavily restricted too. So it's always interesting to get some of these use cases out there, and then also provide some additional tools with just some use cases to these folks that they can take back to their individual companies and help kind of build some of that more cooperative base between the IT and the OT folks, which always interesting and fascinating to me.
Oh, 100% agree. I mean, you were just talking about use cases, and I think that was one of my kind of breakthrough conversations with a customer where, I had their OT guy standing next to their IT guy, and the OT guy's like, we need to start thinking about this. And, the IT guy's like, yeah, you can tell he's not super engaged. But once we started talking about use cases, like I think the one that made his eyes kind of light up was when we started talking about like obsolescence. And then we started talking about like an asset inventory. And he was, I guess in his mind, he hadn't like connected that like cybersecurity, I guess, would de facto, because you're looking at your asset inventory and you're looking at the devices and you're looking at what the current firmware and software is on these devices, that by doing things to step forward into your kind of OT cybersecurity, you're also going to help them kind of accomplish their goals on their IT side of things, or like the requirements that they'd like to drive forward. And so it was kind of interesting to like kind of propose those use cases, because it shows them that it's not just a tool that's going to cost them, X amount of dollars every year just to, keep them safe, which is important, but it's also going to kind of give them back more tools that, more tools that will save them time and resources when they have to, project plan for other kind of goals they have at their facilities. And so I thought that was kind of interesting. Exactly like you said, it's like you bring up those use cases, and that's when the conversation actually gets started, because then they can imagine it in their environment and using it on the day-to-day. And especially, I mean, like you said, there's so many demos going around, so giving them the chance to click around and add filters or look at the risk scoring for devices and actually be able to play around the tool versus being shown the tool, I think that made a huge difference. So I mean, not just with our tool, but with all the other kind of softwares and hardware that was on the show floor. It's just touching this stuff, seeing this stuff is way different than just hearing about it.
Exactly. And given those specific use cases out there, how can we save them time when it comes to all the different aspects that are out there too, and then also explaining it through some of the other cybersecurity frameworks. I think like every cybersecurity framework I've come across, says kind of starts with asset inventory, and that's kind of our big play out there. So, we lead off with that, with what we're doing, but then we also talk about, our partnerships and how we can bring in a lot of that other intrinsic information for those devices as well with those other partners as well. So it really, comes full circle on those conversations. And I think it is a little bit more of an eye-opening experience for the IT folks because it really frames that perspective from the OT side and some of the substantial challenge that it comes into play. And, the other kind of what I like to call a little bit pucker factor that goes around the OT devices. It's not just another like network switch or printer that I can just reboot on a whim and, have like no type of consequences, kind of like our last podcast where we were talking about software with consequences out there. It's always an interesting fact. So I always like to see kind of those eye-opening moments with some of those folks because it's just one of those things that I just don't think they really had a full grasp on it. But then when you do those use cases and they just kind of open up and you see the aha moment kind of pop into their head, it's like, okay, now we're making some connections here. Now you see the challenges that are around a lot of this stuff when it comes to, inventorying these devices and making sure that they're all, up to date or at least in a semi-managed form where we know where they're at, we know what they're doing, and we built remediations up for those devices for the things that we can't, efficiently change out or things of that nature.
Yeah. And we're talking about like asset inventory, but another really exciting thing during Automation Fair was kind of showing all the new risk scoring features within the platform. So for those of you who, are currently using Verb or the SecureOT platform in your facilities, or if you're considering it in the future, one of the coolest new projects that happened in 2025 is, and this started with like a voice of the customer type conversation where, this platform would tell you the risk score of devices, but it wasn't something that you can easily find. Sometimes you'd have to poke around to see, each asset's kind of risk score. Whereas right now they have some really neat new dashboards, very visibly showing the information so that when someone just opens up the platform and looks at, this controller or this switch or this drive, you can right away see, what is the risk score on a basis of like 0 to 100. And not only, see that number, but also see what's contributing to it. So being able to see, this device has a really high risk score because maybe it's missing critical patches, or maybe it has a really high number of CVEs associated to it, or maybe it has a large number of known vulnerabilities that are predicted to be exploited. Maybe the device's obsolescence, so the firmware or the hardware or the software is no longer supported. And so it's really neat because you get this risk score, this like individualized number for each asset in your inventory, but then you also know where it's coming from. So if you're someone who likes the numbers and wants to see, how is this being weighted, or, what is contributing to this information, I think so that was like the big eye opener, I think, for a lot of the OT folks that were, already interested, but this was like, oh, wow, this is like a really easy way to kind of digest the information, see it at a glance, and then be able to explain it to someone. So for example, if you have maybe you have an engineer on the floor and you have to explain to them that this device, we need to do like something to protect it because of this risk score, and its risk score is this high because of reasons X, Y, and Z. And so that use case of being able to show, this device needs to be protected for these reasons was a really, easy story to show. And especially now with how visible it is in the platform, makes it a really kind of cool tool for people to use. And so I think that was the other kind of use case that came up a ton in conversations, is not only talking about the asset inventory and risk-based scoring, but also just talking about individualized asset risk scores, which was really cool to be able to talk about this week or last week at Automation Fair. But yeah.
Oh yeah, everybody was really excited about that functionality because it pretty much allows you to put the things that matter to you into context, and then to see that composition expressed over your entire ecosystem. So, populating all the things that matter to you as far as the things for like obsolescence, the things towards CVEs, and other things of that nature. Maybe it's a totally different combination of items that you're trying to concentrate on within your environment that makes it a great point towards the entire ecosystem. But then you can start building some of those different scenarios based on the composition of the risk scoring that you come up with to see what are the bigger pain points across your entire ecosystem and where should I start being some more of a surgical approach to dealing with some of those uncertainties when I'm doing that type of risk-based approach across the ecosystem. So it was very phenomenal and a lot of foundation to a lot of the conversations that we had out there. So it was great to have those.
Well, that's good. Yeah, and I mean, we got into a lot of those details a couple of episodes ago, I think. But I mean, it is a pretty standout new feature of the product. And, you know, like I said, I didn't go to Automation Fair, but everywhere I've had a chance to talk to people about the risk scoring feature, it does seem to land really well. It's like, oh, well, that's actually really handy, isn't it? Yeah, probably will be.
It is.
There's a bit of an exercise involved, but
yeah, it's just one of those components that it really allows you to kind of tweak around the things that are really interesting to you. We do have a lot of different combinations for different baselines out there that kind of come with it too. So, like, depending on what your concentration is at the time. But the thing about it is you have to remember the composition components. So that way, if you wanted to be able to see it over time, like we're graphing it out there for you, is to make sure of your different baselines. So that way you can see as it's computing over time, you're actually able to see progress against your risk scoring on how it goes as well too. So that was another like foundational thing with being able to show progress out there too. Because it's one thing to be able to speak to risk, but then also a totally another thing to say, okay, well, this is our progress over time on risk as well. And people were like pretty amazed by that one as well.
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, it sounds like a heck of a time. I'm sorry I missed it. But
well, if you missed it, you can still see some of the information online. So if you go on Rockwell Automation's YouTube page, I actually have it pulled up on my other screen, and I was just kind of glancing through to see if there's any sessions that I missed that would be interesting to see. But yeah, if anyone's curious to like hear some of the micro sessions or the keynotes that happened, if you just pull up the Rockwell Automation YouTube page, they have a ton of material published. So whether you're interested in cybersecurity or if you're interested in automation or Plex or any of the other topics we talked about today, there is a ton of material out there, and it's all fresh and new content. So I would highly recommend checking it out too.
Awesome. I will. I'll get that link from you, and I'll make sure that I can throw it in the show notes. Well, I mean, it sounds like a fun time, and we're coming up on the end of our recording time. But I did want to ask, what was that train track thing, Lance?
That was honestly, I didn't even grab a brand name or anything on it. It was in one of the Rockwell booths, and it was just super cool. And I have a second recording where I focused on the switch out, or where it switches directions, and I wanted to show my son how it worked. But yeah, it was some material handling equipment. It had a 30 kilogram or 20 kilogram capacity on the carts there, but I was impressed with how quickly they accelerated and moved around the track. If I look at the video, maybe I can read a brand name off of it.
Was that linear motion cable that they had? Those were so cool.
There were a few different ones. There was the planar motion that was just like pucks that were moving around on a flat surface. That was fascinating to watch. But I think the one that Ken is talking about is, if you look on the podcast regulars chat, 2 videos before that. And I can't read the logo on it. I apologize. But it looks like trains, for lack of a better term, that are moving around a track, and they move around very smoothly and very nice. It was very, very cool to watch. Also, the guy said he's never ridden on it.
Why does that keep coming up as a theme?
Because I really enjoy the Harry Potter ride at Universal Studios, which is on the end of a robot arm, and I keep going, "Hey,
which one was
cool
that?
Stuff." I forgot what it's called, but it's the one that's in the castle, and you sit down in it looks like a bookshelf, but it's on the end of a robot arm, and that's on a track.
Okay.
Really, really impressive ride technology there.
We didn't get onto that one, but cool.
I'm one of those people that when I ride that sort of a ride, my neck is craning around to the side to look at the adjacent cars and see how they're working more than I'm paying attention to the actual ride.
Yeah, I was guilty of that on a couple of rides as well. But it's all good. It's fun.
I think it's kind of like one of those age-old adages around, well, does it run Doom? Right. That's always a cool one to pop out there every once in a while. Get a little chuckle out of the folks out there. It's like, well, maybe.
Yeah. Officially, no.
Right. Yeah, those planar motions were awesome. I wish those were around back in the day that I was actually doing like conveyor systems and things of that nature. Because like the start and stop and the precision they had on those were just absolutely amazing too, right?
I talked to them and they were saying sub-millimeter accuracy, can rotate as well as position. Very, very impressive.
Cool.
Wow. Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey is, I believe, the one.
That was closed. It was closed while we were there.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah. Shoot. No, we did... what was the other one we did? The bank escape. That was fun.
Yep.
Escape from Gringotts. There we go. We were my daughter's favorite though was still it's weird. Like I rode 2 weeks ago, like within that week, I rode more roller coasters in like a 7-day span than in like the preceding 3 decades.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Because like my second daughter is the Daredevil and she wanted to try them all, and Guardians of the Galaxy was her favorite overall. All the ones we tried.
Haven't been down there since that was built. It's been a while for me.
Well, if it's still there the next time you buy Epcot, try it. It's fun.
Definitely. Getting back to Automation Fair, this conversation has really shown me that I missed so much of it, even though I felt like I had a full day. Oh boy.
Well, the Disney comparisons just abound because like that's probably exactly true, right? Like, you can spend a whole day there and you can take in what you think is an absolutely tremendous sampling of the experience. But no, there was more.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Well, you go walking through there and you find like almost an independent alcove of stuff there. And you're like, this is amazing. I didn't know it was here. It's almost like, the reference for like down there at Hollywood Studios when you find like the Harry Potter land, because it's like a little kind of off the beaten path, So it was so interesting to come across all the different aspects in there. It's like, oh, well, this is new type of situation. And I think we were there 2 days and there was still stuff I was finding new like the second day, because it's like weaving in and out of the different things that's out there is pretty amazing.
Awesome. Oh, goodness. Well, we are at time. So I guess I will have to say that that's it for this month. You've been listening to OT After Hours, a podcast about industrial cybersecurity, why it matters, and all of the challenges that it presents. Please share our episodes, now under that new SecureOT branding, with your friends, family, colleagues, and anyone else you think would be interested in industrial cybersecurity. And please consider leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, or wherever you get your podcasts. This podcast has been produced by me, Kenneth Kully. Our opening and closing music is by the ever so talented Octo Sound. Look them up if you need some music for a podcast or a video. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, Lance. And thank you out there for listening. We will talk to you soon.